You're watching us live. It's almost certainly Wednesday, unless you're in Australia, which is Thursday morning, and happy tomorrow. Super excited to have everyone here. Super excited to be back on. Super excited to finally get Dustin onto the show after more than several years of conversations between he and I on a whole bunch of topics. Very excited to go get into that and continue the systems integration theme. Vlad is missing today. He has a bit of a critical plant-wide emergency, which has also, I'm not sure there could be a more appropriate theme other than systems integration for that to happen, as Vlad is actively trying to go stop and solve some of these. So I will tell the chat, I'm going to probably need more questions because I will get to ask more questions in this episode than I will have in any episode in the past. So if you guys have questions or thoughts, especially for Dustin, please feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat below. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Especially if you're new here, as I said, every week we get to go have awesome conversations with other practitioners. This month long, we're talking all about systems integration. Last week we had Dylan. This week we've got Dustin. Very excited to go continue to get into this. If there are questions or concerns or thoughts or anything else, please go throw them into the chat. We will do our very best in order to get there. Having said that, and without further ado, everyone officially welcome to Manufacturing Hub. This is episode 271. My name is Dave Griffith. Missing currently is my co-host Vlad Romanoff. And Dustin, we'd like to officially welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Dave. And I actually get a word in edgewise before Vlad gets here.
Oh, that is true. Although if we say it too many times, Vlad's going to hear us and just join us from the car somewhere with questionable service, which once again would be very par for the course for, sadly, a large portion of our lives. Dustin, so super excited to get you on to talk a little bit about what you're doing on the JPI side. Before we get into those questions and talk about verticals and all of that, if people somehow don't know you or don't know you nearly as well as I've gotten to know you over the years, can you please tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
No problem. I am a Red Seal journeyman electrician who became an automation professional through the normal channels, of course. I worked for another systems integrator from 2011 till end of 2016, and then I started JPI Solutions. While I was there, I ran their systems integration. We did SCADA migrations, SCADA maintenance, panel builds. I ran the panel shop there with the electrical manager, and did lots of automation and design. Then I started JPI Solutions, and I've been running JPI Solutions for the last 9 years or so with 2 business partners. And we are based in Calgary, Canada, and we work for clients all over North America currently. It'd be fun to work for some clients in other parts of the world too, if we could, but we'll see what happens there.
Ooh, I like it. The foreshadowing.
Yeah. We've got 4 offices in Canada right now: Calgary, Grand Prairie, Alberta, Fort St. John, BC, and Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Very fun. Thank you so much for that, Dustin. I want to dig a little bit into the offices because I've got a feeling like the offices are slightly different. You guys may have different areas and groups that you work with, different verticals within those. But before we get into that, I guess take us through the path of becoming an electrician, right? Like take us through that, and how did you go make the swap and the jump from being an electrician to, I suppose, doing automation to running your now own automation company?
Right. So in Alberta, Canada, you start as an apprentice. You have to find a company that will indenture you and bring you on as an apprentice. They have a provincially regulated and run apprenticeship program. And so you do your apprenticeship for 4 years. And typically the big gate is to get in. If you can't get in, then it's really tough to get started. But once you're in, then it's a lot easier to move to different companies. And I chose to build up my apprenticeship career. I started doing residential in Calgary, and then I moved to a small town in rural Alberta, and I did light industrial there. We did all kinds of things from palletizers and stuff at feedlots and different, I worked at a peat moss plant, to farm service and houses and commercial stuff. And then I moved from there into industrial electrical, worked for a large electrical instrumentation company in Alberta. They're well known for doing construction and did lots of oil and gas maintenance, commissioning PLCs, commissioning control systems, installing stuff, wiring things up. all that. And that's what got me into a little bit of the PLC programming side. We would do small additions when I was at that company, add a pump here, add a level switch on a new tank there, and have to add that into the PLC and test all the shutdowns and look at the code and do all of that. And that's kind of what got me a little more interested in PLC programming.
I like it. Both very interesting and a wild way for so many people to go get into this automation life of ours. So super appreciate that, Dustin. We want to go ask you a question that we're asking all of our guests, talking about this team building a systems integrator. Can you tell us a little bit more about the motivations and what made you go out on your own and start JPI, please?
I mean, a lot of systems integrators start from a great idea, or they're just really unhappy with how things were at the place they were at. And I fall into more of the latter category. Not that they were a bad company or anything. When I was there, I had a great time, learned a lot of things, but I wanted to expand my horizons and get into other industries. And I had lots of things I wanted to try as a manager there, and I couldn't try them. I wanted to hire new people right out of the tech school here in Calgary from SAIT and try to bring them into the industry instead of bringing in 15-year instrument mechanics and electricians that many of them succeeded, but some of them struggled with, I'm doing stuff on a computer all the time instead of turning wrenches. And there was a few things like that I wanted to try, and that's kind of what really motivated me to break out on my own. And luckily that owner there was gracious enough to let me out of that employment contract, and we parted ways amicably.
Okay, that's exciting. I suppose this is probably jumping a little bit forward, but I guess take us through some of those ideas, hiring folks right out of tech school, etc. Have you been able to implement those with what you're doing at JPI? How has that been working?
We have been able to implement a few of those. Some of those experiments were successful, and we keep doing them. Some of them were not less successful. So it's being able to try those things and being my own boss that I really wanted to dive into and be a part of. So we started in 2017. About 9 months in, we made our first hire. Okay. And I had a rough idea of what gates I needed to pass to get there. And so I knew I needed to have a certain amount in the bank and a certain amount of work booked. And so when I got to that amount, then I was like, I need to hire somebody. So I hired a fellow in the fall 2017, and then a couple months later, I hired another person. Okay. And growth was on the horizon, and I knew I couldn't do it all by myself. So I sought out partners. And lucky enough, my friend Dan and our colleague Brent Lother, they partnered up with me in 2018 and allowed us to grow pretty quickly after that. So we were 5 people spring 2018 and 10 people by that fall. And then kind of every year since then, we've added 2 to 5 people every year. And then we lose 2 or 3 people as people get, I've got another career opportunity, or I want to advance a different way, or I just don't like automation. I'm going to go do something else.
Who couldn't like automation, Dustin? Right? I feel like anyone who doesn't like automation is going to realize how amazing automation is when they go try something else and then come back to join us. I think that's amazing that you guys grew as quickly as you did, right? Like approximately 10 people over the course of the first 12 months, or I guess the fall of the end of the first year. And then you continue to grow. Year over year. I'm going to go ask the question that I imagine lots of people who are interested in systems integration or who are systems integrators want to know. What is the key to the success? I guess what is the key to the success of allowing you guys to continue to grow at the rate that you have been?
Build really great relationships and focus on problems. A lot of our business is all about that. It's building those relationships with clients and then finding out what the problems are and solving the problems. If it's just about making money, it tends to fizzle out after 3 or 4 or 5 years. Yeah. At least from observing other integrators as they go. And so that's been my big thing and our big thing is focusing on those problems and then just developing these really solid relationships with lots of communication so that as we do great work, customers keep calling us back.
Absolutely. No, I would completely agree with that, I want to go dive into a little bit of those problems. So as we were talking, getting ready for this, you said that the two major markets you guys are currently serving is oil and gas and then also mining. Can you, for I don't know, some not insignificant percentage of the folks currently at home listening to Manufacturing Hub who don't work in oil and gas, or perhaps don't work in oil and gas in Canada because you folks are a little bit different in how oil and gas works, give us a bit of a primer of what the oil and gas market looks like, and maybe a little bit of what the difference is between what it looks like in the US versus the majority of the work that you guys are doing in Canada?
Mm-hmm. So oil and gas is, they're producing oil, they're producing gas, they're producing these things that we use every day, these raw materials, but it's a capital intensive thing. And so for me, I think about it as a big finance play. A lot of times we're putting together these facilities and we're automating things, but it's really about, we're going to cash, the people who own these oil companies are cash flowing it to get an investment back. But oil and gas, though, is comprised of kind of three main areas. They've got upstream, which is the oil coming out of the ground. You've got midstream, which is the pipelines and some of the basic processing. And we have downstream, which is the refining and then getting gasoline into your car. And so upstream, you've got, in the States, they call them exploration and production companies, E&P companies. In Canada, though, we have a little different setup there, and they just call them producing companies usually. And some of the big differences there are royalties. And so a lot of the automation, especially the SCADA stuff we do, the data collection is all driven by who's paying for what, how much royalties do we have to pay the mineral rights holder, all of those sorts of things. It's interesting that a lot of that stuff is all record keeping. And so in Canada, most of the mineral rights are owned by the provinces. And in the States, a lot of the mineral rights are owned by individual people. And so in the US, the upstream looks a lot different because they have to sell right at the edge of the lease because they have to pay that royalty holder right there. And so they have a separation between midstream and upstream because they have to have this delineation, this custody transfer. And in Canada, we don't have that. A lot of companies will collect all of their oil and gas from 100 wells together into one small processing plant, and they'll sell it to a pipeline company there. And then that pipeline company will take it to a refiner or get the gas to a consumer gas system and clean it up so that it's safe to put to people's houses. Mining, though, is also a super capital intensive industry, but it's a little different. They run on a lot thinner margins than oil and gas, but they invest like $100 million, and the stuff that we're involved in is large scale mining, mostly minerals. And these guys are building really deep mines with lots of processing. And so it's lots of materials handling, conveyors. Some of the stuff is made into a slurry or a mud, so it's easier to move. And they'll pump it with big pumps. And the goal here is to just dig out the valuable dirt under the ground and the valuable rocks underground, get that material back to the surface where it can be milled and processed, and you get all the valuable stuff out. And then some of the downside of that is that they're using lots of acids and chemicals and things. So it's tough to dispose of some of those after products, if you will.
And you're also really far under the ground. I know that's probably like a very high level takeaway for all of our listeners at home. But that's what I continue to come back to, Dustin, is when you guys are doing that mining work, the mines are very deep underground. It is a very long elevator ride up or down. There is no easy way out.
No, there's not. And so, yeah, you'll be on the elevator for an hour going down. And then once you're underground, that space underground might be 20 miles across. And they're actually small cities underground. So a lot of the control systems are not just about the machines and the conveyance of materials. It's also substations and power and air monitoring and lighting. And there's a whole bunch of other pieces that go into that.
Absolutely. I guess let's go talk a little bit about oil and gas. So is there any particular, will you guys work across all of oil and gas, the upstream, the downstream, the midstream? Is there a particular sector that you have found more success? Maybe how did you guys get into the oil and gas sector, especially for folks who are less familiar with Alberta, Canada? Yes.
Our relationships are mostly with upstream companies.
Okay.
A lot of the midstreamers will take care of their own They've got a much more sustainable, less boom and bust business. And so they end up hiring a lot of staff to handle their projects, and they don't outsource as much. But the upstream stuff is more, let's go into this area, drill it out, prove it out, and we'll just hire the contractors we need to do that work. And we fit into that space. So most of our stuff is upstream. This is dealing with oil fields. We deal with different types of plays. They've got liquids rich gas, dry gas, and then there's like heavy oil. There's a bunch of different types of oil and types of facilities that they've got, and types of wells that they hit, because what's under the ground is different in different places.
Okay. And then what sort of work are you, I'm sure there's lots of work. I'm sure there's a lot of automation and all types of work all throughout those fields. What sort of, is there a particular area that you guys on the JPI side typically focus, or will you do a little bit of anything to go solve those problems?
So we've got a really solid team that does process control really well. That's everything from the sensor, like the edge, right into the PLC and the operator interface, the HMI. And then we've got a great team here in Calgary that will take that stuff from the PLC HMI system and get it into SCADA for remote monitoring and control, and get that data into corporate. And so if we kind of look at an automation stack, we kind of are in the first 3 layers really solidly into that automation stack.
Okay, absolutely. And then is that how the offices are kind of based? Is the ones closer to the fields are typically doing the process stuff, and the ones in Calgary are kind of doing the SCADA and up to corporate? I guess, was that intentional, or did that just kind of how it worked out?
It was partly intentional.
Okay.
I believe really strongly that if we're going to provide great jobs, they need to be local jobs. And so having local presence in those different areas is important to us. And so in Grand Prairie, for example, we want to be there, and we want to see those clients at the hockey rink, at the soccer field. We want to run into them at the grocery store, and just to keep those relationships good and solid.
No, I like that. And I think it goes back to a point that I really liked how you make about building those relationships, and building those relationships with a desire to go solve problems. It's certainly easier to do that if you run into the people intentionally or unintentionally. And we're not saying, listeners, please go stalk folks who are running your local facilities. That is not what Dustin is saying, especially to you, Vlad, as you are listening. But I really like how I really like that positioning of wanting to be in the local market. When you reduce travel below 80% or below 20%, it significantly increases the value of life for many groups and many integration companies.
Oil and gas too is kind of interesting. We can do a lot of work remotely and do it safely. The stuff that's in the pipe, as long as it's in the pipe, is pretty safe on site. And there's lots of safeguards there too if things go sideways on us. And but mining is a little different. Mining's got a lot of moving equipment. There's people in the same space. Enclosed space is another big piece of gear. And so the mining stuff too, we're finding that those clients really, really want programmers on site. They might have some remote access pieces, but they're not really interested in that. They really want to have boots on the ground. You're talking right to the operator face to face. You can see that machine as you're controlling it through the PLC, all those sorts of things. And I think that's really valuable and necessary.
Absolutely. So on the JPI side, Dustin, did you guys start in oil and gas and then transition to mining?
Yeah, because of Dan and I and our background, we came from the electrical instrumentation doing oil and gas construction and commissioning. And then our relationships through the years really just lent itself to, let's start in oil and gas. And as we grew, my desire and our desire to have other industries involved brought us to hiring Chris Berg in Saskatoon, who's a DCS expert and really knows that large mining space well.
Okay.
And it's taken 3 years, but he's done a great job growing that group, and we're starting to do a good portion of our work is actually mining now.
Okay. And it was the transition to mining was the relationship that you had made with Chris and the opening of the Saskatoon office to kind of grow and transition into mining as a second major vertical?
That's right.
I one moment there. So as you're looking at a lot of these capital intensive groups like oil and gas, like mining, I guess you and I have had a number of conversations kind of around just more general manufacturing. Do you see similarities between the demands and the problems that the folks that you guys are currently solving, be it on the process side or on the SCADA side, and what most manufacturing organizations and groups are facing?
I think there's some similarities. There's definitely quite a bit of difference. Oil and gas is kind of, as I've learned about manufacturing over the last few years, I've
Mm-hmm.
been a part of the Industry 4 community and done a bunch of training with them.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit of that is to try and get the knowledge so we can do a little bit of pivot into manufacturing.
Yep.
And bring some of that back to North America. But
Mm-hmm.
what I see with manufacturing is manufacturers can really optimize and get greater output.
Mm-hmm.
Oil and gas is really tough. If you've drilled a well without going back in and redoing what's under the ground,
Mm-hmm.
it's really tough to make that well produce more after the
Yeah.
fact. And so we're actually optimizing the long tail of that thing.
Okay.
And it's really rare for us to find something in the automation. We might be able to get 5 or 10% out of nameplate on a
Mm-hmm.
plant, but we typically can't come back and say, yeah, you're 200% now without
Yeah.
physically changing a lot of the plant. And what I am excited about manufacturing is that
Mm-hmm.
we can do that there in certain cases.
Absolutely. I guess that brings up an interesting thought, or an interesting kind of train of questions for what the work that you guys are doing on the oil and gas side, and perhaps even the mining side. I can't imagine that the input, right, like the process of actually going and having drilled the well and are pulling the oil out of the well, probably not all that dissimilar to the process of going and acquiring the raw materials on the mining side and going and processing it. Is there very much input that you guys have on the process side or the process SCADA plus side? Or is that typically we have a well and the well is what we've drilled? Now it's our goal to go get as much oil out of said well as is humanly possible for as little additional amount of money as possible.
That's definitely something that happens. That's definitely the game. And we sometimes I get frustrated a little bit with that, right? A company
Mm-hmm.
might spend $5 or $10 million drilling a well, and then at the end they're bickering with us over a $500 bill sometimes.
Yeah.
To get here, you've spent a lot. And to do this right, this brain that controls this pump jack or controls that pump and makes the site run without any downtime, that brain that does that, I program that.
Yeah. Are there lots of, you said that there aren't like a lot of process optimizations that you'll go typically run into. Is the controllers and the other things that are on the well, is that fairly standard? Is there still lots of optimization that could occur, or has the industry generally optimized to the last couple of percent? This is the best way to go about doing something.
Depending on the type of well, there's different things you can do, right? And like I said, it's really about achieving this really long tail so that well produces for a long time at a pretty steady rate. It doesn't decline really quickly. Otherwise, that $10 million doesn't pay out as long.
Yeah.
And so on an oil well, you might have a pump jack, which is really a downhole a plunger with balls in the top and bottom. And depending on how fast you pump that, and of course my office lights shut off. Depending on how fast you pump that, though, you can change how well that pump's efficiency.
Okay.
And so you can kind of control your electricity or your input costs on how much energy that pump is using. And then you can adjust your rate on that pump to make sure that it's not pulling up too much oil. It's allowing the pump to fill properly. And then gas wells have different things. It just kind of depends on the different parts of the oil field, like which plays we're in, and whether we're doing like a liquids rich gas. We might do a gas injection where we're injecting gas down hole to bring up more liquid. That changes things on what you can optimize and what you can do, and a lot of that's process control.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when it, I guess, take us through the decision process, right? Like, is that a Dustin, you're on site, that's a Dustin decision on we're going to go through this process? Is this the decision is made and then they bring Dustin in and you are then just kind of going about building the process and controls for what was previously agreed upon? Is it kind of some combination of each? I have to think like it's different on like a single well, like we were to go attempt a well out in the backyard and we strike oil versus a large company and organization that is drilling tens or hundreds of wells on a regular basis.
Yeah, most oil companies will work with an engineering design company, and that engineering design company, they'll help with where to start drilling, what the drill program looks like, where to drill, how far to drill. Okay. And then they'll also go through and do, okay, these are what the facilities look like to produce that well at our expected rate. And so they'll put in the right pipe size, they'll put in the right valves, they'll put in the right measurement, and they'll try to build that up. And usually by the time we get involved, most of that design's already thought out. Okay. And then we're going through and looking at the drawings going, yeah, you need 5 of these sensors and 2 switches over there, and you need this type of PLC. But even some customers will have their engineering group will provide that to us, and they'll go, this is the PLC you're programming. Here's our logic. Here's our control narrative. Go put it in and test it out and test it to design.
Okay. Very interesting. And so does it change? Is it different on like a greenfield site or a fresh new I guess this is where my ignorance is really going to become apparent for anyone who doesn't know. For new wells, if we're going to a new field and we're drilling new wells, is it a different process than if it's like a brownfield and we're re-drilling wells and we're doing that? Are you involved in some of those processes more, some of those processes less? Or is that like generally so far out of the scope, you show up when the wells are drilled and you go from there?
Yeah, usually the wells are drilled by the time we show up.
Okay.
We like to be involved if we can, if the customer's willing to have us there. We would like to be involved in the engineering design. We keep up on all the technology that's out and all of the new PLC cards and all of the new power supplies and all of the different things that are out. And we can help them build up the right automation system, the right panel to that site. And quite often, if we come afterwards, we're going, well, where's the input for this sensor over there? You forgot about that. Or well, that PLC card's not built anymore. We got to find something else. And if we can be involved kind of from that engineering design all the way up to commissioning and handing over the keys to operations, that seems to work out a lot better.
Okay. And well, I guess let's talk a little bit about the technology, right? So technology continues to change and expand. There are new different types of everything from sensors to controllers to software platforms and beyond. Are you finding that groups are continuing to use the same pieces of technology? Are there newer pieces of technology that are successfully breaking into either the oil fields or the mines? Are you successful in kind of trying to say, hey guys, let's go do something that isn't a 30-year-old controller and a 25-year-old software platform?
I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing is still locked into 10 years ago sometimes.
Okay.
What we're seeing
10 years ago is still pretty new.
Still pretty new. At least they're putting in control logics in certain places.
Yeah.
But I think in oil and gas, what we're seeing is the scales getting larger. The drilling technology is such now they don't have to drill straight down. They can drill sideways and horizontally. And so they're building well pads that are large enough to support, instead of a small PLC, they're putting in a large PLC. And we're getting into architectures that have redundant PLC and or like ring networks for all the I/O and things like that. So instead of a dozen sensors on a site with a single well, we've got maybe a 10 well pad. I've seen as big as 32 well pads that might have 300 I/O.
Okay. That is, I feel like there's lots more I/O that we could possibly add in there. but that is particularly interesting. Okay. And then are you seeing differences between oil and gas and mining? I think you said that some mines, especially when they restart, will go invest $100 million of new capital. Are they looking for the newest cutting edge? What does that look like?
They want the reliable, large scale thing that's out there typically, especially from large mines.
Yep.
Depending what it is, if it's a small machine, then sometimes we can sneak in something new in there. But typically they're looking for, let's buy this big vendor of PLC and integrate it with their big DCS so that we've got continuity start to finish. Okay. And we're not messing around with things later down the road. They're looking to build something that lasts 15, 20 years at least and is able to support things. They're not quickly changing things out that often. Okay. Where we're getting some of the newer tech stuff we get to integrate is a little bit more on the data collection side, on the top end of things, the SCADA side up. And MQTT is not new anymore, but we're starting to get that a lot more now. And getting into report by exception protocols instead of pulled Modbus type protocol.
That's fun. It was a couple of weeks ago on the show, Dustin. I had asked someone about new communication protocols. And it was at that point that I was reminded that all of our newest communication protocols are like 25 years old, or perhaps older at this point, which is kind of how I feel about the control logics. It's both, breaking brand new and also 25 or 30 years old at this point, which is particularly interesting.
Yeah, some of the other things that we're doing that I would consider innovative, typically we have, like, manufacturers are familiar with OEM machines and it comes with a program. And so we have equipment like that in oil and gas, like pump off controllers for pump jacks are typically, you buy them off the shelf and they come from that vendor, programmed, ready to go. Someone has to configure it.
Yep.
But compressors for gas systems is one of the big ones. We have a compressor panel that Dan spent a lot of time with his team designing, but it's designed to integrate with the larger plant. Okay. And that's typically not done in oil and gas. And so a lot of the innovation we're seeing is more of we're applying the same parts and pieces, but we're doing it in an interesting way. And so our compressor package is kind of nice because an operator can control their compressor from the control room office, or they can go out to the compressor and stand there at the panel and touch the screen and actually interact with the compressor, and then also see the alarms and control the plant from there too. And for some operations, that can save them a ton of time. So they don't have to walk out to the compressor, start the compressor, walk back to the office and start the plant, and then walk back out to the compressor. If there's a problem, they can do it all from one screen or the other. And if they're that compressor, they can walk over to the next building and go, I'm going to turn that valve and then save a bunch of time. Okay.
Interesting. So are you finding the ability to take some things from oil and gas and some things from mining and find benefits between the industries? Or is there general resistance to go kind of change outside what we've always done in each of the particular verticals?
I mean, every industry's got resistance, Dave.
Only on days that end in Y, Dustin. Only on days that end in Y.
But no, that's what I'm excited about doing is bringing in these ideas from software, from manufacturing, from mining, and bringing it to another industry and applying them in an interesting way. There's some cool things out there that maybe oil and gas, for example, isn't taking advantage of because they're just kind of in their blinders on and they're not focusing or bringing those new things in. We're into that. We want to bring those things over if we can.
Absolutely. I think that's exciting. When you look at the industries and you have different groups within JPI who have the different technical backgrounds, has there been the ability to like cross-train within industries and take some of either the process team or the SCADA team or both? And if they're oil and gas folks, go work on some mining things. If they're willing to go sit in an elevator for that long, which I'm still not going to be able to get over, it's going to be my new thing. Before it was humanoid robots, and now it's just miles long elevator rides, or vice versa. Has there been some ability to go do that cross training? Has that been beneficial for the greater team?
Yeah, we're doing that right now, and we did it to the point of eliminating the labels, field
Okay.
controls, and data. It's
Okay.
just automation internally. And so we don't really consider ourselves as having separate teams, even though we kind of do.
Yep.
And two, with the industries, with the boom bust cycles of different industries, like we're a little bit exposed to potash on the mining side. It's really tough right now for those guys. There's not a lot of work going on. They have no capital. Oil and gas, parts of oil and gas in Canada are really challenged with all of the world conditions that are happening right now. And I think a lot of it is capitals getting sucked out of that area and getting put into other things like AI and whatever. But as those boom bust cycles happen, we're being exposed to multiple industries. What we're doing now is we're taking these oil and gas professionals, and they know how to commission something. They know what a PLC is, and they actually know all the safety stuff. It's just tacking on some of the industry specific things to get them to go over into mining and helping the mine in Saskatchewan. And so we've actually got a few people that are cross shifting that way right now, so that we can grow the mining side, but also deal with a little bit of a slowdown in conventional oil and gas in Canada.
Absolutely. No, I think it's exciting when you've got verticals that you can allow people internally the option to go shift between the verticals, given the demand. I think it's both great for you as an organization, and it's great for the people who are willing to go learn and understand more about different industries, especially because from everything that I've seen, both oil and gas and mining, depending upon what day of the week it is and which way the wind is blowing, they can either be up and it's the best time ever to be in this industry, or they can be down and give us a call in 3 weeks and hopefully it is better. So I think it's fantastic that you're able to go ahead and do that.
Thanks.
I want to talk a little bit about growth. And I guess what we're asking all of our guests on the building a systems integrator side is to tell us about your first couple of hires. And I know you had some metrics there, and I know you crushed those metrics. And within the first year, you were well beyond the first 2 hires. But I guess take us to those early days. What was it that you were looking for to make the very uncomfortable decision of making the first hire? What did that look like? And how were you able to make that decision? And maybe how does that calculus look a little bit different today, 9 years in?
Hiring the first hire was the hardest one, because it was going from, this is just about me and myself and risk to me.
Yep.
And now it's risk to somebody else if it goes down to 2. And so one of my metrics was cash in the bank. I needed to have enough cash to get us through at least the next month, if not the month after that. So that if things went sideways, I could still make that person whole. And we were able to do that. And then the next piece was, well, I needed to be working like 120% or something. I can't remember exactly what the number was, but I needed to be busy enough that I had something to delegate.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the next piece. And so, hiring the first person those were kind of the 2 big gates. And then finding the person to do that. One of my big things was I wanted to hire someone right out of school, and I have industry contacts from vendors and in Calgary here at the tech school, and they recommended a few names. And so I ended up hiring one of this young fellows right out of SAIT, out of the instrument technologist program. And he was really good, really keen on the computer, really good at thinking in a programmatic way. He worked for us for, I think it was 5 years, 4.5 years, 5 years before he ended up, he went back to school for computer science.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So anyway, that worked out really good.
Okay. I mean, you convinced him enough as to what the future of the industry was to convince him to go back to school, Dustin. So congratulations on that. But no, I think it's very exciting. I know lots of people who were looking for a more experienced person on their first side, but someone who was right out of school. And was there lots of teaching and training and mentoring that you were doing immediately upon that first hire?
Try to, lots of it's trial by fire or learn from the manual. But there's prior to that, when I worked for the other integrator, one of the thoughts you have as the leader or the manager is, I have to train this person to do this thing, or I can do it myself. and I can do it myself and it'll be done in maybe 2 hours and we can move on with life. Or I can spend 2 hours and train them and they'll take 4 hours to do it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And with our first hire at JPI, and we've talked about it, doing this more here too internally, is just keeping this culture of every time we have an opportunity to teach somebody that new thing or get them exposed to that new thing, we should just commit and do that.
Yes.
And so I trained myself that first hire, that first year, to do that. And that, I think, helped set us up for success, so that this new person was also getting the regular training one-on-one time with someone who knows. And it's hard to do once you grow.
Yeah.
But just mentally going, oh, this is the new thing. I can do it myself, or I could get someone else to do it. I'm going to teach them and get them to do it. Is kind of the strategy there.
Absolutely. I also do my best to do that. Having said that, sometimes I just really want to get the thing done in 2 hours. But to go commit to doing that right off the bat is super commendable. And I am really happy that it worked out as well as it seemed to work out. Can we flash forward over the course of the next year in which you've brought on Dan and Brent as partners? And we don't have to go into all of the details, but I'm sure lots of folks in the SI business are interested in what did that process look like? Why did you decide it made sense to go bring partners on into the business? And then maybe like how much of work Dan and Brent are doing in the business versus other ventures.
All three of us are 100% JPI. We don't do anything else. Part of the mental process of bringing on partners was this thing's going to grow. It's going to be bigger than me. It's going to be built for more than just me. What do I need to do that? And having the depth and the experience on the business side, on the control side, and being able to do that and not do it all myself, that was important to me. When I did that process, I asked dozens of people about partners, bringing them on. I had 0 people recommend bringing on partners. And
I'm sorry, you had 0 people recommend it?
No one. When everyone I asked family, I asked other business people I know. No one. Everyone's like, just keep doing it yourself.
Wow.
And it was stark. It was really tough to go think through that. But I knew I wanted to get somewhere and I needed help to get there. And so we decided to take the plunge. And I wouldn't go back and change that decision. I mean, partnerships have up and downs. That happens. But I wouldn't go back and change that. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't partner up in 2018.
Absolutely. No, I think it's interesting. And that is in part why I bring it up, is because at some point it is very difficult to be the person who is leading everything and doing everything. And you have the choices of, do we bring partners on, or do we go try to hire all of the people? And then at the end of the day, you're still the sole responsible person in charge of most of the majority of it. I've had good partnerships and I've had significantly less than good partnerships, but I am a little shocked that 0 people in your life said, yes, go look for partners. Wow. It says a lot about you, Dustin, especially based upon the fact that you just told us about the partners that you now have. Speaking of partners, we have one of my partners, Vlad, in the chat. He says, hey, everyone, sorry you couldn't make it. Vlad, I don't know if you caught the beginning, but I did tell them that it was the most appropriate reason that you're not here for the systems integration theme, as you are currently on site attempting to integrate or deintegrate or whichever portion of the process you are currently in integration. Vlad, absolutely one of the best partners anyone could ask for when it comes to the podcast. And everything else.
We're now 45 minutes in and we're probably getting to the end of the interview, not starting it.
Oh, catching strays, Vlad. Catching strays, Vlad. But no, I guess that's amazing. I love the conversation about partners, and I'm really happy that it worked out better than everyone in your life said that it was. And everything that I know of Dan and Brent do seem to be absolutely fantastic on the partnership side. And you guys have been super successful when it comes to growth. You're probably further along in the growth stage and 9 years in 4 offices than the majority of the folks that we're going to go talk to on this theme, Dustin. Can you tell us about what the metrics look like in 2026 or 2025 and 2026? How do you know when it's time to go hire someone else? Are there like certain things that you're looking for when you're hiring? Are you looking for are you looking for folks that have been in it before? Are you looking for folks that are new, fresh out of college? What is the general makeup of the hiring thought process now 9 years in?
Mm-hmm. I think it really depends on that specific moment, but we're kind of looking for all types. So we're looking for a right-hand person for Chris Berg in Saskatoon to help manage the office, go to site, manage clients, look for opportunities. We're looking for a right-hand person for Dan in Grand Prairie to offload him and give someone that he can delegate some of his accounts to. So those people have to have depth, and they have to have some communication skills and ability to be personable with a client. And those people have to be people we can trust. I think that's probably one of our biggest things, that performance, like the output of the programming in some of these roles, is not as important as I need to be able to trust that you're going to go out, represent me and the group, and not give us a bad reputation. And when we commit to something, you're going to follow it through, whatever it takes. And we've done a fair bit of work around the metrics of that. But we're also bringing on some junior people. We recently hired a couple of people out of the instrument program here at SAIT. I'm looking at doing that with the tech school in Edmonton and Saskatoon too. And so we've got a few recent hires that are like that, but we're also might be interviewing other tech leads and manager type people for Calgary here too over the next while. So
absolutely. I think it's important to both fill the top and bottom of the technology and of the experience ladder, right? The most difficult people to hire are the people who are in the location that you are looking for someone and can go do all of the things in the way and up to the standards of the company and the organization. And so that is always very important. And kind of to your earlier point, Dustin, it's also super important to go continue to have that mentorship and skill and upskill folks who have come out of technical college or are looking to go make a career change. Otherwise, you're never going to have those middle career people that can become experienced people.
What we're finding too with hiring people right out of school as well, we would like them to be here for 10 years or longer, but we're also finding too that they'll spend 3 to 5 years with us. And then they're like, what else is out there? I haven't gotten any other experience yet. And that's cool too. I'm really glad that the people that have been here and the people that will be here eventually have chosen or will chose to make us a stop on their career journey, which is kind of fun.
Absolutely. I find that the normal career today looks a lot different than the normal career 10 or 15 years ago did. 10 or 15 years ago, you would expect someone is going to hopefully stay with the business for a very long, extended period of time. Today, I would imagine that the average duration of new employment is a fraction of what it used to be. When it comes to looking at those people and like the expectations of how quickly you ramp up and how quickly they can become customer facing and other things like that at any point in the career, have those changed for you internally, Dustin? Do you hope to ramp people up faster so that they can start producing more work, or do you just expect that they're going to be kind of a similar ramp up and you're only going to have them for a limited period of time?
I mean, ideally, if they could ramp up in 3 months, that'd be amazing. But there's just so much arcane and niche knowledge that they need to know. And some of the stuff you don't learn unless you do it. So,
absolutely.
So there's the technical width and depth that we have not trouble with, but we're navigating. And then there's also the client relationship piece. And so if there's a junior that comes straight up out of school, and I was just pulling this up. So we consider them the apprentice. They're not that competent, but they're here to learn how to do it right. We want them to bring curiosity, humility, and relentless question asking, and be super ready to learn. Just absorb whatever you can. Be transparent if you have knowledge gaps. Don't give us we want you to be confident to try something, but not arrogant. Like, yes, I can do this, and then totally have no idea.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know, but I can figure it out is the kind of confidence we're after. And then as they're going into intermediate, I mean, 6 months is really fast to do that.
6 months would be really fast.
Really
yeah,
fast.
no.
It's going to be 18 months to 2 years probably as a junior, and then into intermediate. And then the intermediate person, the thinking goes from the learning and absorbing everything to you're building stuff. Long-term thinking, long-term value, thinking more in, if I do this for this customer, they'll save stuff over time, looking for opportunities, doing things that are client first. It's not just about making money, like answering the problem that they have. Doing more collaboration. One of the things that we struggle a lot with, though, is the communication. Technical people quite often are introverted, which is totally okay. But we also are in a space where the client is like, I wish I knew that you finished that yesterday.
Last week, or I thought you finished that 6 weeks ago. Why are we still having this problem?
My boss asked me about that this morning, and I couldn't answer them because nobody told me it was done. So the communication piece is really huge, and that's, I think, for us, that differentiates our business from a lot of others, because we don't have a lot of people that are in the back doing programming code. They are in the back, but they have to be on the phone with the client, answering their questions and solving their problems.
Absolutely.
Then, like the senior people, they're the craftsmen. And so it's moving more into the communication first approach, right first time execution, direct accountability, confident but not arrogant, mentoring, moving into teaching others, and then taking care of client relationships.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really good. And kind of talking about how long it takes to ramp up a new person. Like a year or 18 months would be really quick, lots of times. To go from maybe you're out of tech school or you're out of engineering school. Sometimes I found folks with like mechatronics degrees can go ramp up a little bit faster. But having said that, there's just so many things to learn. And to your point, Dustin, sometimes you don't understand or know until you've done it. And sometimes to get to the point of you doing it, you have to go through the process 2 or 3 times to fully understand what that looks like. And I would agree. I would agree.
What worked for me when I was a junior was just voraciously consuming manuals and help files and teaching myself. I would come up with little scenarios to program for myself in my spare time. My wife was probably ticked off with me for being at the computer all the time, but it'd be like, I'm learning geoscada. I'm going to learn how to build a symbol for a valve, and I'm going to hook it up to a SCADA pack or a PLC that we work with in the field, and I'm going to make that valve work. And building those little use cases on my own time helped progress my career a lot faster. Absolutely. And then when I walk into those conversations with a client and they say, I want to do X, Y, Z, then I immediately can go to my backlog of things I've learned. I go, you want this, you want that. Yes, I can do it. Even if I haven't done that a specific thing, I've got enough bits and pieces in my toolbox that I can help you. And that just lends to confidence. I think if I was going to suggest or encourage people, give them some advice, that'd be one of the things. Like, just be willing to learn. You will have to learn a little bit on your own time, but find, use gear. There's lots of great platforms. One of the interesting things through my career, I've worked on Allen Bradley, but they don't have a great simulator. So you either need real hardware or you need to buy the expensive simulator software. But other platforms don't have that. Lots of other platforms, you can simulate the code. And so you can, whether it's a bit on a screen or an actual physical switch, you can simulate that thing and actually make the logic do what you want and see if it actually works. And I would just encourage people to do that. One of the things we've done here is, and I don't know that we get as much use out of it as we want, but we have a whole bench of used hardware that we have online and on the network for people to use. And that was one of the big things for me, having JPI and setting it up. I was like, we had test benches at the company I was at, and I contracted for another company for a while, but they had a lab room, but nothing was powered up.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't obvious how to get access to that gear. And so in our Calgary office and our Grand Prairie office, we've got 2 big test benches with a couple dozen different types of PLCs and controllers that we would use in oil and gas. And they're on the network and powered up, so people can, oh, I want to learn how to program this tonight, or I want to configure a meter for a job I'm doing 2 days from now. They can do that with test gear in the lab instead of having to do it on the job site, waiting for the customer, having the customer wait for them.
Yes, and I will say, not doing it the first time, reading the instruction manual that almost certainly got lost, whilst 5 people are staring over your back and you, best case scenario, get to sit on a nice comfortable bucket. That's never fun the first time. And Dustin, I'm not sure it matters if you're 25 and you're doing it for the first time, or if you've been doing it for 20 years and you're still doing it for the first time. I mean, hopefully 20 years later, people don't see you sweat quite as much as you're wondering why you had to go to the 40th page in order to get like a critical piece of information that you needed for step 2. I don't know why manuals are written like that, but they are. And so no, having the hardware is important. I think you brought up a really good point. I think all of the technologists that I know who are very good and continue to hone their craft spend countless hours, some of us way too many hours outside of the normal work, in order to go test new platforms, in order to go figure out new problems and solutions. This would have been fantastic if Vlad was home. We could have panned over to his PLC wall. Vlad, you failed us once again, and I failed by not having the PLC wall in order to put up. I, in fact, should have taken a picture of me in front of the PLC wall when I was up there earlier this year, but sadly, I have failed on this. But no, I would say to all of our listeners at home, if you don't really know Vlad's backstory, the majority of solusplc.com, please go check it out, guys, was done, at least all of the first versions were done at a Holiday Inn Express. After he was done on site, he would just go tape the first, his most popular Rockwell videos were taped from a Holiday Inn Express room. Having said that, I don't know how he hauled all of that on an airplane back and forth as many times as he did in order to go get the Control Logics and the Compact Logics and the PowerFlex videos up and running. But that was the origin of Solus PLC, is at a hotel room after hours. Absolutely. I also think you brought up another really good point, Dustin, and I want to touch on that. I'm going to go ahead and touch on that. But before we move on, but you were talking about communication. I would agree with you that communication is one of the easiest things that could be done, but hardest things for many people, especially many technical people, to understand the value of, especially as you're communicating outward towards the client. The value add to the client so that they know all of these things are done or in progress or you're working on them is exponential. But I couldn't even tell you how many groups that I talk to every week who are looking for help or who are looking to move on or who have an issue. And a lot of it stems from, we asked for this thing to be done and then we never hear back, or we thought this thing was done and we had a catastrophic failure on this particular issue this week because we thought we had solved the problem, but we hadn't solved the problem. And so a little bit of communication goes a long way, even if it's just 3 bullet points of an email, or you ask Claude to go summarize the things that you've just done and dump in a whole wiki in there. The value of that is generally very understated on the technical side.
I would say it's the only consistent complaint I've ever gotten from customers. And it's the man, I didn't know what was going on, or I didn't know you were finished, or I didn't know my IT guy needed to get something for you.
Yeah. And
what I would say to people who are getting into this as a career, that gut feeling of, I'm nervous, I got to phone somebody, like that's your cue to call that person and just tell them what's going on.
Yep.
and I mean, we had it just recently with a recent project, and I won't name names or anybody, but it's a process and we're learning. And we had a SCADA migration we're doing, and I got the email from the CEO. What's the update, right? And I could tell right away. I was like, "Yep." I knew my team hadn't. So the one fellow was on holidays.
Yeah.
And the other guy was doing tasks and doing a great job completing tasks, but no one had updated the customer CEO, right? And so I wrote him a 2-page email with just bullet points of all the stuff we'd done, right? And it was like, no big deal, but that communication through the project, and I know for me, I'm a little self-aware about myself, and I know I like the attaboy. I don't necessarily need to be the front man all the time, but I do like the attaboy from somebody. So I'll communicate and I'll try and get that. Most people don't have that inkling, right? But if you can do that as a person in automation working with a client, you have operators and engineers. They don't understand this technology. It's in a black box. They begrudgingly know they need it and they need to pay for it. They don't totally understand why. Just adding a little bit of, hey, I programmed this thing over here, or I set up the comms on that network over there. And those things go a long way to building trust. And I think that's probably what ties into that is customers want to trust who's working on their system.
Absolutely.
It's a black box. They have no other person to tell them that what is getting done is right.
Absolutely.
And so there's no communication, there can't be any trust.
I would agree. As someone who spends an inordinate amount of their time being the go-between to reduce that workload off of the team, to allow them to continue to do the things that they're really good at, and then make sure that communication continues. You certainly can tell the difference in groups and teams that have good communication versus groups and teams where it's the end user project manager or the end user CEO. I mean, hopefully it's not the CEO that often who has to go try to get answers as to what's happening. I was going to say for smaller groups, it absolutely is, but for larger groups, hopefully it's not. Do you guys have tools or technology? Is there anything that you guys are using for communication to the end user? Do you guys go build projects in Teams or any of the 1,000 other project management tools and invite the end users in, and then they don't log in, and then you have to send emails anyway?
When we started, we used Slack and Google Docs.
Okay. Yep.
We were really small. That was really fun. I like Slack a lot. But when we started to grow and everybody needed Excel for doing cause and effect and shutdown keys, and we had a lot of bulk edit tools for our SCADA system stuff that had macros and stuff. We really quickly switched over to Teams, and we made that kind of our central internal communication spot for everything. External facing, we adopted some stuff from IT. We adopted an issue tracking system, a ticket system. So most maintenance things will go in there. Part of that is so we can record what happened, whether there was a learning or maybe we can. And we've actually added an MCP server to that. We've got a couple of people that have done a great job building that up. So we can go back to the ticket system and ask, hey, we've had this problem. Have we had it before? How many times have we had it? And then that gives us a spot to point clients to. There's a customer portal part of it. So a client can log in and look at their tickets and see all of the conversation back and forth, plus all the screenshots if we put them in there.
Absolutely. Yep. No, that is good. That is good. We've done a lot over the years, and I'd love to find one that everyone is just in. And most of the time it comes to, it's just Teams, right? Like, be it your tenant or the end user tenant, depending upon how large the project is, it undoubtedly ends up in Teams. And mildly hate it or completely hate it, that is just the communication platform that the world seems to run. And now if my teams could just figure out which account I'm trying to actually be logged into at any point in time, that would make my life so much better. But I think Microsoft has stopped taking my requests.
Yeah, multi-tenant Teams is hard.
Multi-tenant teams is hard, and it doesn't get better. It does not get better. Dustin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out. I want to go make sure that we get to ask you all of the questions that we ask all of our guests. And longtime listeners will know the first one is my favorite. And I want to go ask you to predict the future. And I want to ask you to predict the future of systems integration. It could be the future of systems integration in oil and gas and mining. It could be the future of integration in general. I will leave that choice up to you.
I think the future of systems integration is still going to be about problems and relationships first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think that part's going to change. I think how we execute some of our work is definitely going to change. We're going to move away, I think, from I'm double clicking on this tag to configure something, and I'm going to do that 1,000 times for this project.
Oh, I hope so.
I mean, really good programmers don't do that anyway, but
yeah,
they automate it with scripts and other things. But I think a lot of that stuff is going to move to AI, and you're going to say to Claude or to ChatGPT, you're going to say, it'll have a tool into your development system, and you'll say, change these 1,000 tags, set the parameter according to this spreadsheet or according to this engineered design doc. We're already starting to see some of those things. We're messing around a little bit with taking PLC programs and turning them into shutdown keys, which is the design doc that tells you what inputs and outputs do. And surprisingly, with a good prompt, it gets us like 85-90% of the way there right away.
Yeah.
And it's decompiling Rockwell files and turning it into a shutdown key that we can work with. It's wild.
Okay. That is kind of wild. 85 or 90% is really good.
Yeah. So we're doing that with a couple different types of PLC programs. And we're things like building a tag list from your electrical drawings. You can toss that PDF if it's a company that has no intellectual property restrictions, toss that in the Claude and have Claude give you back an Excel spreadsheet with the tag list. Yep. That's starting to happen now. And I think what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years is customers are just going to expect that to be the baseline. And if companies are not doing that and techs are not doing that, they're going to be left behind and not competitive in the market.
Absolutely. I am personally looking forward to never having to go do that list of work again, be it transposing tags and other informations over from PNIDs or, typically we won't have to double click 1,000 times. Typically we've gone to UDTs and other things along that. So although I have done some calculations on a group that had like 50,000 tags and each of those tags are hard-coded, and I'm like, guys, it's going to take us 13 clicks to change every single parameter. We really should just go bite the bullet and build UDTs. They never did. Dustin, I'd imagine that they're like 100 million clicks to go change all their parameters by this point in time. But I am really impressed with the different AI tools and what can be done. I agree. I think that groups that will win and will continue to be successful are going to go leverage those tools, and it helps reduce time and therefore cost to the end user. And it helps get rid of like the worst part, the most monotonous part, the part of the job that everyone makes mistakes on, because at some point your eyes just go crossed. And how can I possibly determine if that's a 1 or an L on this tag?
Yeah, and the other thing I think is going to really started to happen in our spaces is everything's turning to code, infrastructure as code. All of our PLC code files are going to become text, I think, eventually. They're going to have to, so that we can work with them with Claude or OpenAI, so that we can version control them. We can take advantage of some of the software dev workflows that we don't totally have today, right? Which all the PLC programmers out there today probably know about dated files in a folder and which one is the right one. Because it may not be the new one.
Oh, yeah, I know. Which one is the right one is always the choice that you ask, especially if you were the last person, when you should know the answer. Dustin, that is awesome. I appreciate it. We'd like to ask you some career advice. So if someone comes to you and they're like early or mid-career and they've just come to work on the JPI side, what sort of question or what sort of career advice would you give for them?
Yeah, like I said earlier, like be willing to learn a little bit on your own time. We'll give you some training if you're in-house here. But be willing to learn on your own time. the resources are available. You just got to go read them. It's probably not my problem, actually, that if you're not learning things fast enough, you got to go look it up. All the help files for all these products, like these vendors want you to use their products. So their help files are usually pretty good, even if they're very arcane or difficult to read sometimes. Most of the stuff is there. And I think a lot of that piece, like just be willing to learn and learn all the time. And then lean into the communication piece, even if it's not your default mode. If you're hesitant about the communication, find someone on the team that can help you with that. Find someone to pair up with that on maybe, but the communication piece. And then just know that, especially for an systems integrator, we want to be able to give you lots of hard work and give you lots of clients and trust you with those relationships. And so be someone that we can trust.
I think that is all fantastic. I think if you can do those things, you're going to be successful, whether you work for an integrator or you work in automation and manufacturing, or you do something completely different in the career at any point. If you can do those things, I think you will be successful with whatever you are looking to do. I think you've got a book advice or a couple of book recommendations for us today, Dustin.
I've got two that I really like. Radical Candor by Kim Scott is one. It's more for, well, it's generally for everybody, but I give it to my leaders on my team. And it's really about giving feedback and doing it in a kind way and not being too kind or not being too mean.
Not being too kind
and let someone get away with something they shouldn't get away with. And it would be better if they were corrected. And you can also be arrogant and mean about it and really discourage people. The second book, though, is more of a personal thing. I really like Creativity Inc. It's written by Ed Catmull, who was the president of Pixar before Disney bought them. And it really describes Pixar's early days and about them inventing the 3D tech. And what I like about it is they're marrying technology and software with art. And I feel like systems integration and what we do is actually a little bit of art. And so there's pieces of that I bring to my life. And I've read that book a few times. So if you haven't checked it out, check those two out.
I like it. There is certainly a lot of art. Some of it is beautiful art. Some of it is terrible art. But there is certainly art when it comes to many of the parts of what we do. Next up, Dustin, we'd like to ask you for like an interesting idea or innovation. And typically we frame it for Vlad. Vlad isn't here, so his ears are going to burn more as we talk about him. But let's say Vlad comes to work for you at JPI. Maybe you ship him up to Saskatoon, just so he can also say he's been to Saskatoon. But let's say Vlad comes to work for you at JPI as like an entrepreneur in residence, and his goal is to work on new, fun, innovative ideas. And he's like, okay, Dustin, I've got here, I'm settled in. What should I work for? Which direction would you push him to look at?
Yeah, well, I actually had a really boring thing that I think people in the audience might like. Maybe I'm giving it, I don't think it's not really competitive advantage, but we've been using large language models a lot with log analysis. And not that I would say to Vlad, go out and sell log analysis, but we've been using that to solve really weird problems with different systems. And we'll take, I had a factory talk system that failed, and it was the leap year bug that they've got in their software. If you're in that space, you know about it, and it's a really big pain in the ass. But anyway, we grabbed all the logs from all the clients, the directory server, the HMI servers, the historian. We put them all in a folder, and I said, hey, Claude, this log, here's the logs, the Windows events, the factory directory logs, the diagnostic logs from the clients. The event happened at whatever time it was. Go find what happened. And it can parse through all those files. It'll write scripts to go through it faster. We've been doing that a fair bit in different use cases, troubleshooting comms, parsing Wireshark, and those problems where we're like, we checked a box and it seems like it's fixed now. The OT people, like the really technical people, are going to go, yeah, I've been there. And they'll be like, I've rebooted a system and now it seems like it's fine, but maybe you haven't fixed the problem. We're actually using LLMs and log analysis to get past that and go, yeah, the problem is here. We've changed this one setting. We can go back to the logs and go, yeah, it's fixed. And that's been a really good win for us, our group. even though it's a really boring thing.
Yeah. Well, I agree. As I think I've told you, we've also been doing a bunch of log parsing on the OT side. And as all my IT folks and the data scientists that work with us say, it's very normal on the IT side. They, in fact, looked at us like we were some of the dumbest people in the world when we're like, yes, no one is doing it on, like, there aren't entire industries set up for OT log parsing or Rockwell log parsing or any of that. And they're like, but why? And so I agree. I think log parsing is a particularly interesting area that we're going to see groups do. Some of it successfully. I imagine we're going to see like absolute terrible failures on some of it. But as with most things, OT is what, like 20, 25 years behind what our IT groups have been doing and have been successful with.
But for Vlad, doing the innovation thing and selling something new, probably what I would say to him is, hey, we're getting into knowledge graphs, context graphs. These are systems that allow us to lay relationships on top of this really messy OT system that's designed for engineers and programmers and technical people. Let's add a layer of context on top with knowledge graph. And there's a few things out there. We're partnered with Thread Cloud. They're a really good, cheap way to get into that. And anyway, you tack this system on top, get your tags into the knowledge graph and start building relationships with the contextual, this flow rate's related to this pipeline because of XYZ. Now your large language model has something to go through and find what you need to find. And so that's really current and new and coming out.
Absolutely. All of those particularly interesting. Dustin, this has been awesome. Last question for you, for our listeners at home. How can they help you? Who are you looking to connect with? Is JPI looking to hire? Are you looking for more work? Who are you looking to connect with on LinkedIn? You're open forum to ask all of the folks anything you'd like.
We're looking to hire. Like I mentioned before, I mentioned some of the different positions we're looking for. We're looking for interesting problems to solve in our spaces. So if you've got things you want to connect and get everything consolidated and put together, let us know. I'm building a bit of a digital transformation practice as well. So if you want to do a DTMA, we can sit down and do that too. Or if you just want to talk shop about an interesting thing that you're doing, I'm in a few of the AI discords and I'm on the Industry 4 Discord channel, and just reach out and find us there.
I love it. You can find Dustin anywhere on the digital side and also in Calgary. Dustin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super happy we finally able to get you down on Manufacturing Hub to go talk. Hopefully the first of many conversations. You guys are involved in a whole bunch of fun, interesting things that I hope to continue with this in the future. If you guys have made it this far, please make sure you're following Dustin and JPI, especially on LinkedIn. Please also follow myself and Vlad in Manufacturing Hub for all new fun episodes. We've got the rest of our Horner automation. We've got some Siemens coming out on the Manufacturing Hub side from Automate. Next week, we've got Rich from Fishbone Technical, which is going to be a really awesome conversation. He's built even more systems integration companies than Dustin. I think Dustin's at 2. I think Rich is at 4 or 5. So we will have a bunch of fun conversations about, again, other fun and interesting verticals. If you made it this far on YouTube or if you made it this far on podcast format, you're absolutely amazing. Please hit the like and follow and rate us 5 stars. When I remember to ask and Vlad remembers to update the podcasts on Thursday morning, you guys listen, and that's pretty awesome. Until next week, we'll see everyone.